Hey everybody, this is Marianne and Andrew Kroeze. Woo, woo, woo. So excited to have him here with us to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is mental health. And for those of you weirdos who don't know Andrew, I don't know. Yeah, you have so many accolades. Let's see. Andrew is the CEO, right? CEO of Tribe of Buyers. And I was at his event last September and I watched as he made over $1 million in sales in, I don't know, like a half an hour. But the important part about that is it was heartfelt. It was real. It wasn't salesy. And I think half the room was crying.
I screwed up the pitch so bad, and it still turned out. It was still an awesome event. And it was just really cool over 3 days seeing so much transformation going on. So I think that's really what contributed to the financial outcome of that event.
Yeah, but I also feel like you're minimizing a little bit
with the pitch.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so for those of you who weren't there, real quick, during the middle of the pitch, basically, Andrew stopped and he just stopped and he's like, you know what, you guys, I'm really sorry. I feel like I'm out of integrity in this moment and I'm going to bring it back around. And you told us why you thought you felt like you were being pushy or something. I didn't get that from what you were saying, but that's how you felt.
Yeah.
And you just owned it. And then half the room started crying. Seriously.
I got a standing ovation for pitching a $60,000 program, which I don't know if it has ever happened before. It was pretty nuts. I just, in that moment, I felt totally out of integrity with how I was going about the pitch, because I was modeling my mentor's style of selling from stage. And it just didn't feel right to me. And I kind of saw it in the crowd too, where some people were rubbing the back of their neck. And I know I love studying up on human behavior. And I know we have nerve endings on the back of our neck. We touch it to make ourselves feel better. That's why when people are lying, they touch back their neck, that sort of stuff. So I just saw that and people were feeling uncomfortable. And I was like, shit, I need to speak to this. And it worked out, I guess, but it was a crazy moment. It was a really crazy moment.
Yeah. And so Sandra's on here. Hi, Sandra. Sandra says Andrew is a man of radical integrity, which I think is absolutely 100% true.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So let's dive in. Let's just kind of have a conversation about this. I actually put up a post this morning saying, I'm just going to say this and see how it flies. Depression is not a choice. And the thread, I think I got over 100 comments. And it was a super interesting thread to read and to interact with folks who have different ideas of that, really. And you're pretty open about your challenges with depression and anxiety. And I'd really like to talk about that too, as it relates to having your own business and being an entrepreneur.
Totally.
So let's just have a conversation, share value, and I want you to feel comfortable sharing whatever I'm is in alignment with you.
Yeah. If your questions, if anybody else has questions on the slide, I'm happy to answer any of them.
So why do you think entrepreneurs have a higher level of higher instance of depression and anxiety?
It's kind of like a chicken and the egg question, right? I really feel like entrepreneurs are born. They're not really created. We have this entrepreneur gene in us that just drives us to create and make something in this world that's not there yet, right? And there's so much stress and anxiety, and just like you beat yourself up if you haven't like created that thing yet, right? And I think entrepreneurs have a higher rate of depression and anxiety because we're just predisposed to wanting more, right? It's kind of just built into us. When we don't have it, like we're not doing the things that are moving us towards like what we know we're capable of, we fall into these bouts of depression and just being anxious and just all the time. I think that was super true for me because I looking back, I knew I was always meant to be an entrepreneur. When I was 6 years old, my mom signed me up for a softball team because she couldn't find a t-ball team for me. So I played softball with all the girls when I was 6. And we had to sell candy bars to raise money for the softball team. And they gave us a box of candy bars to sell. And one morning I woke up, walked out the door with a box of candy bars, and my parents didn't know I was up, didn't know I left the house, and they were worried sick for me for like 3 hours. And I come back later, and all the candy bars were gone, and I had a wad full of cash. Going door to door, just being a cute little 6-year-old kid selling those candy bars. So I look back on that, and I look back on I flipped vintage baseball cards on eBay to pay my way to Cooperstown when I was 12 years old.
Oh
yeah. And so I always had this like entrepreneur gene, and then I went to college and thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I studied psychology, which I love psychology, like studying up on it as a hobby, but as a profession, I didn't really want to go into it, or like that wasn't built for me, right? And throughout those years, I just drank a lot. I just was surrounded by toxic people, and it like attracted those things into my life. And I think it was because I wasn't really living out my purpose, like what I ultimately wanted to do, which was create and build and like create these machines that make a world a better place and also makes money. So I fell into a really bad depression in college, and I was on Wellbutrin for 3 years. I was in and out of therapy. I developed a really bad drinking habit, and just woke up every day just like not happy with life, but I just accepted it and carried on. And yeah, and it wasn't until I started just removing things from my life, such as the drinking. I set a goal to stop drinking for 90 days and to lose 20 pounds. And I accomplished that goal. I remember looking down at the scale at the YMCA around day 70, and I was 20 pounds lighter, 21 pounds lighter. And I was like, oh my God, if I just put my mind to something, like I can accomplish it. And it wasn't until I started to remove those things from my life, it ultimately unblocked me. It wasn't about adding something. It wasn't about like in that moment, it wasn't about like adding meditation or reading every day or like anything like that. It was more so removing the bad things from my life that were keeping me down, where I could create space to ultimately meditate more, do more breath work, read more, right? And it was more clear. I realized that I was just drinking and binge watching Netflix and hanging out with toxic people to numb the pain of what I was ultimately feeling of not fulfilling my purpose. I think that's ultimately what entrepreneurs go through, the depression and the anxiety, because they're not doing the things that are ultimately fulfilling their purpose and what they ultimately want out of life. And some people are just like wired to be more comfortable, which is totally cool, totally fine. And they might not have as much anxiety and depression because they're more comfortable with where they're at. Just I know with entrepreneurs, they're always trying to push the limits and grow and expand. And it just causes a lot of depression and anxiety out of that.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up some interesting points, and one was it's not about going to meditate. It's not about necessarily even reading that, perfect book.
Mm-hmm.
It's about cutting out things that really weren't serving you.
Mm-hmm.
So you could create the space and the opportunity to like get into alignment with yourself and get into that flow. Cause like drinking, is this while you were in college or was it later?
It was college and about 2 years after college. Yeah.
Did you go to OU?
Yeah.
Go to OU, right? Yeah. I mean, I live where Penn State is. And I mean, we're both from Cleveland. OU is a huge party school. So is Ohio State. Penn State is one of the top party schools in the country. And really drinking is so normalized. I mean, like these kids go out, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and to them it's normal. And they're coming in to see me with tons of anxiety, depression. I went through this too when I was in college, drinking and actually using drugs. Like
Same. Guilty.
Yeah, like pot and some other things. But it really does affect your mood. It sounds like duh, but you're in it and you don't really notice it because it's sort of like a downward spiral.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, right now I've removed so many of those like alcohol and like uppers and all that shit. Like remove that from my life. And I'm now like 550 days sober, completely. Thank you. But I'm starting to realize there are other things that are affecting me that I thought didn't really affect me, such as like caffeine and such as like I notice how much like food affects me and what I'm eating, like in terms of my energy levels. And I'm trying to figure out like that balance of like not spiking myself so high, like drinking that caffeine or such as like stimulating myself through like watching Netflix or something like that. Like the spikes, because whenever there's a spike, there's going to be a valley, right? So I'm trying to figure out how can I keep that like just even keel and not have too many spikes in my life so I don't have like so many valleys, if that makes sense. And Dr. DeMartini actually talks about this, about like when he is on a rush and on a high, he instantly tries to ground himself through meditation or whatever his means are to not get too high, because if you're just like, for me, it used to be just like drinking way too much caffeine, having all these good ideas, getting really excited, and then not having any energy to actually implement on those ideas after I've announced them, right?
Because you're like spent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So things like that. So just trying to keep everything pretty even keel with not having like those spikes of dopamine, because that it's just gonna rush out of you. And you're gonna hit a low. So yeah.
So interesting, because we get like addicted to the spikes, right? Like it feels good. I'm totally addicted to caffeine. Yeah. I mean, I was in denial about that actually for a long time until about 2 months ago when I didn't have coffee one morning. I thought, I mean, seriously, my head was pounded. It was bad. So you just don't.
Though it's like a lot of people are addicted to caffeine, so it's just so normalized, you know. Yeah,
and you're right. I hit that like slump like in the afternoon. I don't drink caffeine anymore in the afternoons, but I used to. I've like now I do jumping jacks instead, and that like helps kind of like bring me up a little bit so I can like be with my clients in the afternoon. But that is such an interesting. Like you cut that out and then other things appear.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the lessons of that is like, it's a journey, right?
Oh, totally. And I think it's because I'm constantly trying, like every entrepreneur, constantly trying to push the boundaries and push the limits. And like what's demanded of us is so much more than like what's demanded of like everyday normal society, right? And we're affected way more by those decisions than people are that are working like the 9 to 5 job, right? Because like person that's working 9 to 5 job can go out, drink, and be hungover at their job like on Monday or Tuesday, whatever. But like for an entrepreneur and you're trying to grow a business, you can't. Like it's going to affect you way more than anybody that's just getting a paycheck, right? So like I'm always trying to find ways to optimize my energy and kind of like just make sure that it's not like super high or super low, and just try to optimize it to be like just even keel throughout the day. But yeah, it's tough. Just
it is
tweaking. Yeah.
It's I mean, that it's addictive. Whatever it is. I don't mean the substance itself, but like those feelings, those dopamine hits. It's like the path that your brain goes to. And it's definitely challenging to switch that up and do something different. And what are the secrets to that?
I think for me, it's vision and goals. So in 90-day goals, to be specific, that's what kicked me out of that, like almost like half a decade worth of depression, was setting a 90-day goal, being fed up and saying, no matter what, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to be completely sober for 90 days, and then tracking. So for me, I have anything that I'm trying to remove from my life, I put into this app called Day Count. Hold on. I'm going to show it right there. And that's a picture of me, but ignore that. Day Count at the top there.
Which one is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the black one up there. Yeah. Day Count. That just counts the days that you have like done something or have not done something. So for me, binge watching YouTube videos, like if was setting a goal for 90 days to not do that. And I quit drinking caffeine for 6 months. And I put that in Day Count and I had it tracked, and 180 days were up, and I'm like, woo, awesome. I went back to drinking caffeine because I'm addicted. But just putting those things in to setting 90-day goals and putting that into some type of tracking system, because what happens every time, like before I started putting into Day Count, I would be 15 days in and then I would just revert back. Now I have kind of a buffer where I'm like, I don't want to reset my Day Count. Like it means something to me to actually hit that goal of my Day Count saying 90 days of I've done this thing or I've removed this thing, and actually achieving it and doing it. So yeah, that's been the most successful thing for me. Like having a grander vision for myself and like what I want out of my life, and then setting up the goals to actually create that life for myself, and then actually accomplishing it. And one of my good friends, David Toth, he always says addition by subtraction. Like you need to remove things from your life that are not serving you and replace them with something that does serve you, your vision and your goals, right? So yeah, that was drinking, that was caffeine for a little bit, that binge watching YouTube videos, those sorts of things, removing that stuff. So replacing it with breath work, with meditation, with just focus on what I want out in life, you know?
So this is a little bit of the layer underneath that, I guess. How do you decide kind of like, how do you know what's making you low? Like, how do you know what's making you worry? That sounds weird, but But, anxiety is this thing you feel in your body, right? So you don't necessarily have the awareness like, oh, I'm feeling like this because I'm drinking too much caffeine, or I'm going to stop binge watching YouTube videos because why? Like what?
So for me, I'm always thinking about what are those spikes that I'm using to cope. So the way that I look at things is like, am I doing this to cope or am I doing this to thrive? Right. And if I'm doing something just to cope with my emotions that I'm not fully feeling, then I know that's going to show up as anxiety in everyday life. So if I replace that activity with something that's healthier, then I'm moving to ultimately where I want to go. There's this book called The Slight Edge that either you are on the slight edge up or the slight edge down. And it's exponential because these things build over time, right? So if you're doing a bunch of coping activities, overeating, like watching too much shit TV, watching the news, which is awful for you, and drinking too much, all that stuff, hanging out with toxic people, you're on the slight edge down. And over time, that will compound down where your life is somewhere you don't want it to be, right? You can engage in those activities for a little bit, but if you do it consistently over time, it's going to take you way down, right?
Yeah.
But then there are those, the slight edge up, which is doing daily meditation, working out, eating right, hanging out with people that inspire you. Like, then you do those activities, those habits over time, and you're on the slight edge up. And it's just a compound effect. And you're ultimately going to get to where you want to go and live that happy, healthy life, which I've been able to do over the past 2 years. And have I fucked up like a few times? Hell yeah. But like ultimately, it's been crazy. It's been that compound effect where I've been on the positive upswing. And that's why I have lived an amazing life in San Diego with my girlfriend now, living with her. And like, I have this awesome business. And like 2.5 years ago, I was a drunk asshole. Like, I was not living a good life. And it's just the compound effect over time of like, am I coping or am I thriving right now? And in terms of like anxiety, it's just anxiety builds up because we're not doing the things that we know we should be doing. And sometimes it's not only those things, but also that conversation that we need to have with somebody. Like, that is a big reason why anxiety builds up, because we're not speaking to truth and ultimately what we should be talking about with people. And one little nugget that I got from Brene Brown was starting the conversation with the story in my head is. Like, if I need to have a tough conversation with somebody, I want to speak into a space and I don't want to speak like directly at them. Like, I want to say the story that's going on in my head is blank, right? So if my girlfriend and I are going through a rough patch, let's say she's turned away from me in bed and I'm feeling that, right? And I can say, hey, the story in my head is that you're turned away from me in bed because X, Y, and Z. And this head, I don't know if it's truth. Can we talk about this? Right. Yeah. And using that little frame from Brene Brown, like, has helped my relationship so much and alleviate so much anxiety in my own life, because I'm speaking to something that needs to be spoken to ultimately heal myself and the person that is obviously being affected by my actions as well. Right. So yeah, that was kind of a roundabout way to answer all of that.
No, I love that. I love that because, and when you don't do that, it may just be talk about exponential growth or exponential growth.
Yeah.
When you don't do that once, okay, no biggie. But when you don't have those conversations and share them in that authentic, vulnerable way without blaming, it erodes your relationships.
Totally.
Such good insight there from you. Thank you. So do you mind if I take a sec and read some questions?
Sure.
Okay. So I want to say hi to Sandra. Hi, Kristen. Sandra says, like, no lemonade stand like when you were a kid. No, I guess it was candy bars. Candy bars for his softball team. Kristen. Hi, Kristen. Thanks. Kristen says, thanks for being so authentic and honest. Talking about depression helps remove the stigma. Yes. Mm-hmm. And Adele says 542 days sober. That's amazing. That's amazing. And Kristen says, I used to take 400 milligrams of caffeine a day. I haven't had any in 2 weeks. I used it for over 10 years. Holy wow. Good for you. That's awesome.
What I found when I gave up caffeine is I got so much closer to myself and knowing what like real energy is. It was pretty cool. Ultimately, I went back to it because like there was so much demanded of me where I needed to work those like extra hours and really grind it out. But there's going to be a time and a place where I'm just not going to pick up caffeine again. Because it was quite the like spiritual experience, and my sleep was so much better. I had like really, really amazing dreams during that time too, because my sleep was so much better. And I finally knew what like real energy felt like, and it was just really, really cool. But yeah,
maybe I'll try that.
It's really tough when you're trying to grow a business. It is so hard. I do not recommend like growing business, but like when you start to outsource, like when you start to delegate your delivery and your operations and your marketing and your sales, and like you can take some time for yourself, and it's kind of your business is running and you're making that money. That is when I would say, hey, take a step back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had my therapy business for 11 years, but I'm low. So that's a little bit different than, like I can't like now coaching, that's different and it will be different. But yeah, that's a goal for the future for me.
I love it.
So Lupita, hi Lupita. She has a few questions. Hi Anisia. I hope I said that right. Okay. So Lupita says, I'm not super familiar with Andrew, who Andrew is. Lupita. Can you give a quick summary who you are and how you positioned yourself as a mental health expert, which I don't think you call yourself?
No. Yeah.
Who are you, Andrew?
So I'm an entrepreneur. I am CEO and founder of Tribe of Buyers. We help solo entrepreneurs and small businesses create online programs and scale them online, specifically with Facebook groups. And Marianne is creating this Facebook group with our methodologies, and she's crushing it. And I've been doing this for about two and a half years now. And I started like just 2.5 years ago. I was working a 9-to-5 job selling CRM systems. Then I quit my job. I created an advertising agency where I was running Facebook ads for local businesses. And then I transitioned to this business, and it's in just 2 years, it's become a $1 million business per year. And it's just been an amazing journey. Yeah, it's been fun.
Kristen says you're basically a rock star, which is true. But I also, I just, we're running out of time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I also want to say this about you. When I met you, we were hanging out at Brad Hart's mastermind. I didn't know anybody except Brad and only met him online.
Yeah.
And I was going through a really, really shitty time.
Yeah.
And Andrew, yes, give us hearts, #lives, all that stuff. Andrew was so kind and so giving and loving with his just, I don't even want to say advice. It was just fun. And I I didn't know Andrew as Tribe of Buyers. I didn't even know what Tribe of Buyers was. And he is a really spectacular human being. And it's not all about money. He also is giving away a lot of money. I hope you don't mind if I share this about Avery.
Oh, no. I think he'd be cool with it too. Yeah.
So Andrew has a really amazing part of his team. His name's Avery Ford. And Avery had an eye issue with his eye that had always bothered him. And it basically was considered cosmetic surgery, right? So like insurance wouldn't cover it and everything. Mm-hmm. And Andrew paid for Avery to get the surgery. And Avery just had it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
this is cool. It's so cool to see the swelling go down and his eye turning back to normal color. And like, he's never been able to see straight in his life. And like, we hopped on a call the other day and he was looking right at me and I'm like, whoa, this is so sweet.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm starting to cry. He's involved in a house building project. He's committed to building 2 houses in 2020 in Mexico this year, donating $15,000. You talk about paying your dad's debts so he can retire. It's about giving back. It's about, helping, giving back. And you can't do that unless you're making the sales and you have money. And especially women, we have a really fucked up thing about sales.
Yeah.
But you can't make an impact without sales, And you're a great example of how to do that authentically.
Yeah. And I think if we just looked at the money in a different way, where it's more so I can do good with this money instead of like I'm taking people's money. Yeah. And I just love like doing those things that make a huge impact on people's lives. So with Avery and building a house in Mexico and then helping my dad retire. And I want to dive into more ventures. And I love the like hands-on component where I know where the money's going, not like just giving it away to a random charity. Like it feels like it has way more of an impact. And I think if we think about money in that way, sales doesn't like freak us out as much. And what I've found with actually the sale of when somebody actually purchases your services or whatever it is, they're saying yes to themselves. Like you do sales for people, you don't do sales to people. Like when people actually invest in themselves, they step up and they actually like, they make more out of their life, especially in the coaching and the consulting space. So just looking at it from that lens of like that person is investing for themselves as well as like trusting in you and your program and whatever it is, you're giving them an opportunity to do that. And people usually step up when they actually invest in themselves and you're giving them that opportunity. So yeah. And I don't spend my money on like Lamborghinis or fucking anything like that. Like I like a simple life. Like I said, I don't want to hit those like really high highs and buy something extravagant and then like just me going like I hit that high and then I know there would be a low. What I do with majority of my money is either I reinvest in my business, I donate it, or I invest it into the stock market right now. So those are like really where my money goes. Nothing into really anything extravagant.
I mean, it would be okay if you bought a Lamborghini. No one would touch you.
I got this statue. It's $30. Things that look expensive.
Ross. Ross.
Yeah.
I love it. You had a really awesome quote in there, about sales, but I can't remember what it was.
You do sales for people, not to people.
Yes, I love that so much. That's so valuable. And you are actually giving a very valuable service. You're working your ass off for other people, and they are investing in you. It's not like they're just like throwing money at you and you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Giving them something in return.
So one of the first businesses I tried was an e-com store and selling like jewelry that was sourced in China and it was I don't know how like drop shippers do it, because there's so many customer complaints, and like it's just, you're not really selling anything of like immense value. It's kind of just resold things that you could get somewhere else on the internet, and I was like, I can't do this. Even if I'm making a profit, I can't do this.
I didn't feel in alignment with you.
No, not at all.
I think my brother-in-law did that for a week or something. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. So Vicky, hi Vicky. Vicky's watching. Soraya, hi Soraya. Vicky says, hey, Adele says, love this. I have trouble with pushing through to the closing of the sale. I think kind of even using that word pushing just creates the anxiety. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's really a prescription, because during a sales call, you should be understanding their current situation, their desired situation, and understanding like their struggles and their perceived challenges. Like those 4 things, ask questions around those 4 things. And then really at the end of the call or during the call, it becomes a prescription rather than like you pushing anything. Like you understand their situation, you understand what they want, and then you say, hey, awesome, I think this can really help. Like this is what I would prescribe to you, or what I think would be best. And then asking one really good question is, are you open to talk about finances? Like you tell them about like what your prescription is, or what the vehicle is, or whatever you're selling, right? And then you can just say, hey, are you comfortable talking about the finances? Yes. But, and then dive into that. So if you come in from that and it's not really sales, it's learning about them. It's if sales is like a naughty word to you, right? Some people get hyped about sales, but if it's like a naughty word to you and like it's not good, then look at it from the point of view as you're understanding about that, or understanding their current situation, and their desired situation and their perceived challenges. And then you are prescribing them a solution for that. And then you can just say, hey, you want to talk about finances around that? And then boom, they open up, and then you can talk about finances.
Yeah, I think it's great just to come out and talk about it. I mean,
yeah,
it's just energy. Money is just energy, you know? Yeah. Your Wi-Fi, my friend, is doing something funky.
No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So Vicky says, give us tides. What does that mean? Do you know what that means?
Just give us rides. I don't know.
Tides.
You put rides in.
Rides. Just give us rides. Hi, Marianne. Hey, would you guys mind, all you guys who are on live, #live? That would be awesome. Hearts, thumbs ups, all that stuff. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Marianne, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I love talking about this stuff.
So do I. So fun. I think it's just so important just to come out and talk about the stuff that we feel maybe embarrassed about or ashamed about. And it's really not all about just changing how you're thinking about things necessarily. But I love how you said, like, it's not even about doing something different. Maybe it's about taking something out to give yourself space to do something different or in a different way.
It's always that. It's always removing something first and then adding something in later.
It's not about adding. Yeah. Andrew, Adele Mason wants to know if she can friend you.
Yeah, your friend request.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, keep it up in the group. I love everything that you're posting. It's so awesome.
It's this group. I tell you what, we are small but mighty, and it is so fun. It's just so much fun. And tomorrow we're starting a 7-day mindset reset challenge, which is it's a digital workbook, journaling prompt workbook for women entrepreneurs. I wrote the journaling prompts just for women entrepreneurs. So yeah, so that'll be fun. We have 20 people signed up to do that. So if any of you want to join and do that, let me know tonight. I got 7 days of emails going out to you guys in the mornings just to keep you pumped and keep you going. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, my mentor always says he always says that I always get these two quotes mixed up. One quote is, "You're only limited by your ability to ask effective questions." And then his quote is, the quality of your life is determined by the questions that you ask yourself. So like with your journaling prompts, those are so powerful because those are the questions that are ultimately going to get people to like where they want to go and really focus in. Questions are forward focus, right? And focus in on what they ultimately want out of life. So I'm excited for you to give that out to everybody. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and like getting that energy in the group, talking about it. I'm really excited. Yeah, it'll be fun. So I'll see you on Thursday.
Can't wait. See you at the mastermind.
So excited. See you soon. Thank you so much, my friend. I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.